Hello, my name is Frater C, and today we will be discussing critical self-analysis and awareness. I cannot stress enough the complete and utter importance of critical self-analysis. Simply put, if you wish to understand the universe, you must first understand yourself. Everything after will fall into place in perfect harmony. Though some of you are possibly questioning what the phrase critical self analysis means or entails, critical self analysis, from what I've grown to understand, is the thought process of looking within oneself to discover the hidden truths through self realization. Though, why should you indulge in critical self analysis? Discovering yourself is crucial, and as I've previously stated, it is the key to understanding the universe. That won't make much sense now, but I assure you, as you practice, you will come to realize just exactly what I mean by this. It's not something I can describe in words, it is something one must experience for yourself to truly see its glory. Critical self analysis is a great tool for the process of self transformation, reprogramming your subconsciousness, and finding acceptance and perhaps even love for oneself. It's a difficult, lifelong process with a multitude of methodologies that many adapt and utilize in their own ways, though not many are capable of attaining a true healthy form of critical self analysis. An example of an unhealthy form of critical self analysis, which I see all too often, is when a person is too hard on themselves, who blames themselves for a variety of things, those with little self confidence. It's good that those people are able to look within themselves to a degree, but they're looking through a very foggy lens. They forgot to apply something to their thought process to make the practice effective: open mindedness. A willingness to humbly analyze all truths as they are, regardless of subconscious and subjective attributions. It is the balance of the subjective persona and the objective observance that the gateway to the truth is revealed. Oftentimes you must question yourself, and further question the meta of thyself, and to feel free to question the very act of questioning if your mind wishes to be sated of its curiosity. Why do I feel this way about a certain subject? Is self blame logical? What's the best path to a solution? In alchemy, this would be the act of calcination, breaking down each part into its primal aspects, separating subjective from the objective, analyzing them both, and following down the rabbit hole. Oftentimes, people have a hard time being honest with themselves. They don't want to accept the truth behind the curtain. I find all too often that the hardest of truths to accept are due to our sociological constructs embedded into our minds from the very societies we reside in. Why do I take pride in my country? Why am I afraid? All too often, mankind seeks to be a part of something regardless of meaning or true justification, afraid to accept the oddities of their minds because they do not wish to be shunned for being different. I have found that constant questioning of all of my actions, thoughts, and feelings has helped me understand myself, my ego, and the operations of even other people around me. Of course, I will still feel emotions, sometimes tough to conquer, and sometimes the answers are not always so obvious. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Calcify with questions piece by piece, and be patient. Once you have found your answers, you can feel free to start the process of coagulation, combining the primal aspects into something new, transformed. You can begin the process of self transformation as you begin to accept yourself as you are, to begin to see the beauty and the gift behind the strife. We will go more in depth on this later down the road when I do my video on alchemy. So, Remember to be open and honest with yourself. Be patient and understanding with yourself. Question yourself in every aspect, little by little. This process may take weeks, months, or years to master, but don't let that scare you. It'll become natural as your awareness expands. The best advice about learning to become more aware of your thoughts and learning how to best question them is to learn how to accept and reject thoughts until you are ready to question them. This is something that I learned from another magician, Frater Xavier, as some of you may already know. The idea is simple. Whenever you get a thought in your mind, you must say aloud or in your mind, I accept or I reject that thought, and put as much of your will into it as possible. Visualizing the thought vanishing will help as well. Do not dwell on the rejected thought. Move on from it and go to the next thought. The longer you practice accepting and rejecting thoughts, the more natural it will become. Some people may have a difficult time learning this, but if there is anything that you take from these lessons, it is accepting and rejecting thoughts. Keep at it, it will become a habit. It is one of the most important stepping stones towards self-mastery. I will put a link to Frater Xavier's video on accepting and rejecting thoughts in the description. I can't recommend it enough. Now, we will begin discussing how awareness fits in with critical self-analysis. Awareness is a key factor that mustn't be forgotten in the process of critical self-analysis. The average human being can process millions of thoughts throughout the course of a single day, most of which are either forgotten or hidden deep in the subconscious mind. Dedicating even a small portion of our time to just being aware, without prejudice of our thought process, will aid us in discovering more about ourselves. When in the process of establishing awareness through meditation, you must not force the thoughts in either direction, in or out. In this practice, you are merely observing the flow of thoughts, how these thoughts are formed, and how they end. You are also observing the context of these thoughts and any particular emotions and sources that are attached to said thoughts. As stated before, you are merely observing them objectively. You must not force the thoughts. You cannot force the flow or engage in any manipulation of these thoughts. So for this exercise, you will be required to find a comfortable, quiet area with no distractions. Avoid anything that stimulates any of the senses, such as sight, sound, taste, smell, and this includes music, as they will subliminally influence the natural flow of thoughts, which induces bias. You will now begin to enter a meditative state of mind. You may use any basic technique you desire. In my later lessons, I will describe more detailed techniques, but for now, just take some deep breaths, maybe count each breath up to 20 until you are in a proper meditative state of mind. When you are fully relaxed, this is when you begin to cease control of the flow of thoughts and begin to observe the thoughts that start flowing in. You will be silently observing the thoughts, succumbing to the flow without fear, prejudice, or judgment. As you begin to observe these thoughts, you will begin to notice patterns emerging between these thoughts. You'll begin to understand what you're thinking, what sort of perspectives you hold, and in that way, knowing thyself completely. In all of my years of life, I have come across too many a person who are incapable of explaining or comprehending their own thought processes and behaviorisms. Personally, it's a shame to see the mass populace taking the easy way out rather than developing the introspective mechanisms required to really begin developing themselves. Perspective is a powerful tool, and through this practice, we learn to embody the totally unbiased and non judgmental persona to attain a higher and more in depth sense of self awareness. With this, we can integrate our awareness exercises with our practices of critical self analysis alongside of accepting and rejecting thoughts. In later lessons, I will go over in more detail how perspectives can be further utilized. Thank you for listening to my video here on critical self analysis and awareness, and I'll catch you on the next video.